What if I told you the Atlanta Falcons' entire 2026 season, and possibly the next 5 years, hinges on a single second-round pick? That's not hyperbole. That's not clickbait. That's the cold, hard reality facing a franchise standing at the crossroads between relevance and irrelevance. The Falcons season is effectively over. Raheem is coaching his final games in Atlanta, and the front office is about to make decisions that will either validate years of patience or confirm what critics have been screaming all along. This organization doesn't know how to build a winner. Welcome to the most critical offseason in recent Falcons history, where every choice matters and there's zero margin for error. The draft capital reality, check. Let's establish the battlefield before we discuss strategy. As it stands, the Falcons enter the 2026 NFL Draft with 1 second-round pick, 1 third-round pick, 1 fourth-round pick, 1 sixth-round pick, 1 seventh-round pick. That's it. 5 picks to address multiple needs on a roster that's talented but fundamentally flawed. You might see a compensatory pick if Kyle Pitts signs elsewhere, and let's be honest, he probably will. But that won't be high enough to move the needle significantly. This isn't a draft where Atlanta can afford to swing and miss. This isn't a year where you can take developmental projects and hope they pan out in 3 years. This is a precision operation where every selection must contribute immediately. The needs are clear and urgent. Interior defensive line, absolutely critical. Wide receiver, more pressing than people realize. Outside cornerback, Mike Hughes isn't getting younger. Offensive line depth, insurance for inevitable injuries, 5 picks. For major needs, the math doesn't work unless you nail every selection. Dane Brugler's bombshell. Jermaine Burton at pick 43, here's where things get interesting and controversial. Dane Brugler, one of the most respected draft analysts in the business, has the Falcons selecting Jermaine Burton, wide receiver from Alabama, with the 43rd overall pick. For those unfamiliar, Brugler isn't some hot-take artist throwing darts at a board. His annual draft guide, The Beast, is 130-plus pages of comprehensive scouting reports that NFL teams actually reference. When Brugler makes a projection, it's based on extensive film study and legitimate connections throughout the league. His reasoning for the Burton to Atlanta connection? Let me quote directly, "We'll see if the Falcons bring back Kyle Pitts in 2026. Regardless, Atlanta could use another pass-catching weapon to help take heat off Drake London. Because of his versatility across the formation and competitive mentality, this guy's a dog. Burton will be a favorite among scouts and coaches." Let's break down what Atlanta would be getting. The statistical profile: 11 games played in 2024, 51 receptions, 700 yards, 6 touchdowns, 13.7 yards per reception. Are these eye-popping numbers? No. Are they solid production for a second-round prospect? Absolutely. But statistics only tell part of the story. The physical profile: 6 feet 1 inch, 204 pounds, ideal NFL receiver frame, no significant injury history, surgical route runner with deep route, tree-willing blocker, needs refinement. But the effort is there. The comparison: Brugler and other scouts compare Burton to Jalen Polk from Washington, a technically sound receiver who wins with precision rather than pure athleticism. The knock? He lacks elite breakaway speed. But here's the thing: Atlanta doesn't need another burner. They need someone who can run competent routes, get open in zone coverage, and take pressure off Drake London. That's exactly what Burton provides. The 4-year college trajectory: let's examine Burton's entire Alabama career, because consistency matters. Freshman year, 2021, 7 receptions, 128 yards, limited role. Sophomore year, 2022, modest improvement, still developing. Junior year, 2023, significant leap in production. Senior year, 2024, 51 catches, 700 yards, nearly 16 YPC. This isn't a one-year wonder who exploded in a contract year. This is steady, measurable improvement over 4 seasons. Exactly the kind of development curve that translates to NFL success. Yes, this is Kalen DeBoer's Alabama, not Nick Saban's dynasty. But that doesn't diminish Burton's tape. He's still winning against SEC competition, still making contested catches, still showing the technical refinement that NFL coaches can build upon. The real question isn't whether Burton can play in the NFL. He clearly can. The question is whether he's the right fit for Atlanta's specific needs. Why this pick makes perfect sense and why it terrifies me. Here's the uncomfortable truth Falcons fans need to hear. Outside of Drake London, this receiving core is a disaster. But what about Darnell Mooney? I hear you screaming. Let's talk about Darnell Mooney, because this conversation is long overdue. The Darnell Mooney problem, look at these 2024 numbers, and try to tell me everything's fine. Catching less than 50% of his targets, only 323 receiving yards through 13 games, 0 touchdowns, until Week 10 against the Saints, 5 drops, on pace for a career high. Worst yards after catch production of his career, 45 yards total. Let me be crystal clear, this isn't just an injury issue. Yes, Mooney has been banged up. Yes, the quarterback situation has been chaotic, but drops aren't about injuries. Drops are about focus and hands. And right now, Mooney can't catch the football consistently. The yards after catch decline is even more damning. NFL coaches and GMs prioritize one thing above almost everything else in receivers: the ability to extend plays after the catch. The quarterback's job is to deliver the ball. The receiver's job is to maximize every opportunity. Mooney is failing at that fundamental responsibility. Here's the financial reality. Mooney carries an $11 million cap hit in 2026. That's not devastating, but it's significant money for a player showing clear signs of decline. Combine the cap number with the lingering injuries, the drop issues, and the YC problems, and you have a legitimate case for moving on. I know that's going to anger some fans. I don't care. My job isn't to make you feel good. It's to analyze what's best for the franchise. And what's best for the franchise might be cutting ties with Mooney, drafting Burton, and restructuring the entire receiving core around youth and upside. The ideal scenario? Keep Mooney but redefine his role. Draft Burton in the second round, sign or draft another receiver, and make Mooney your WR3. That's where he thrives, as a complementary piece, not as the primary support for Drake London. If the plan is to keep Mooney as the WR2 going into 2026, you've already failed. The bigger picture, building a modern NFL offense, let's zoom out for a moment and consider what a competent offensive coordinator, someone like Clint Kubiak, if Atlanta gets serious about hiring, could do with this theoretical receiving core. WR1, Drake London, proven, physical, reliable. WR2, Jermaine Burton, technical, versatile, ascending. WR3, Darnell Mooney, speed, threat, reduced role. RB, Bijan Robinson, generational talent. TE, insert replacement for Pitts here. That's a balanced, multi-dimensional offense that can attack defenses in multiple ways. London wins with size and contested catches. Burton wins with route precision and football IQ. Mooney provides the speed element, and Robinson is the engine that makes everything else work. But here's the critical component. This only works with competent coaching. Under Zach Robinson's scheme, Burton would be wasted. Under a modern offensive mind who understands how to use pre-snap motion, play action, and route concepts that create natural separation, Burton becomes a legitimate weapon. The Falcons don't just need better players, they need better coaching to maximize the players they have. Burton is the kind of prospect who succeeds in well-designed systems and struggles in chaotic ones. The counter-argument, why not address defense? I can already hear the objections. Interior defensive line is the biggest need. Why are we drafting a receiver in the second round? Fair question. Here's my answer. You can address the defensive line in free agency with proven veterans, but finding young, cost-controlled offensive weapons is harder and more valuable long-term. The defensive line market in 2026 free agency will be robust. Players like John Franklin Myers and DJ Reader, if they hit the market, can provide immediate impact. You can sign a veteran defensive lineman to a 3-year deal and know exactly what you're getting. Wide receivers are different. The hit rate on free agent receivers is lower and the cost is higher. When you find a young receiver who can contribute immediately on a rookie contract, you've discovered gold. That's 4 years of team control at a fraction of what you'd pay a veteran. Plus, and this is crucial, The Falcons' offensive identity is still being formed. A new head coach and offensive coordinator will want to install their system, and having young, moldable talent is more valuable than expensive veterans set in their ways. Draft Burton in the second round. Sign a defensive lineman in free agency. Address cornerback depth later in the draft. That's how you build sustainable success. The ultimate question, draft or pass? So, here's where I put it to you. Would you draft Jermaine Burton with the 43rd pick? I'm not going to give you my answer yet because we're still months away from the draft and a lot can change. But I will say this. If Dane Brugler is projecting this fit, NFL teams are thinking the same thing. Burton checks boxes that matter. Technical refinement, coachable, competitive mentality, culture fit, positional versatility, scheme flexibility, clean injury history availability, steady production trajectory, consistency. What he doesn't have is elite speed. But you know what? The NFL is littered with fast receivers who can't get open and slow receivers who consistently produce. I'll take the technician over the track star every time. The real test will be how Burton performs at the combine and in individual workouts. If he tests better athletically than expected, his draft stock could rise into the first round. If he tests poorly, he might slide to the third round, giving Atlanta even better value. The Darnell Mooney decision, keep or cut. Let's address this directly because it's the elephant in the room. If you had to choose between drafting Jermaine Burton and keeping Darnell Mooney at his current role and salary, which would you pick? Here are your options. GB. Go Burton, draft the young receiver. Move on from Mooney, embrace the youth movement DM. Darnell Mooney, keep the veteran. Trust that health and scheme changes will restore his production. I'm leaning toward Burton, but not because I think Mooney is washed. I'm leaning toward Burton because the Falcons need to get younger, cheaper, and more flexible at the receiver position. Mooney's contract isn't crippling, but it's not ideal for a player showing decline. If you can restructure Mooney's deal and reduce his cap hit while drafting Burton, that's the best-case scenario. But if it's a binary choice between paying Mooney $11 million or investing a second-round pick in Burton, I'm taking the draft pick every time. The brutal truth about this offseason here's what Falcons fans need to understand. This offseason isn't about making one or two moves and hoping for the best. This is about comprehensive organizational restructuring. Raheem Morris is gone. Zach Robinson is gone. The offensive and defensive schemes will change. The roster will be overhauled. The culture will be reset. Everything is on the table. In that context, drafting Jermaine Burton isn't just about adding a receiver. It's about establishing a new identity. It's about building an offense around young, hungry players who fit the new coach's vision. It's about creating sustainable success rather than chasing short-term fixes. The Falcons have been stuck in mediocrity for years because they keep making safe, conservative decisions. They keep trying to patch holes instead of rebuilding foundations. They keep hoping that minor adjustments will produce major results. That approach has failed spectacularly. If Dane Brugler's projection comes true and Atlanta drafts Burton at 43, it will signal something important. The front office is finally willing to make bold, forward-thinking decisions. They're finally prioritizing long-term building over short-term comfort. That's the kind of organizational philosophy that separates contenders from pretenders. So, what's your verdict? Would you draft Jermaine Burton with the 43rd pick, or would you rather see Atlanta address defense or keep investing in Darnell Mooney? Drop your take in the comments, GB for Burton, DM for Mooney, and let's debate the future of this franchise. And if you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button and subscribe because the Falcons offseason is just getting started, and you won't want to miss a single move.